we've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
It's Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back, Raider Nation. Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. We hope you're having a good Sunday and that you're staying safe and that you're staying cool. It's warm all over the country, at least most parts of the country. We had 108 this week, and now it's going to be like 82 today. So it's playing with us, and it won't be this cool until October probably for us. But lots to get to here on the Silver and Black Today. By the way, check out the website, silverandblacktoday.com. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. We are streaming live video today, both to our YouTube channel, to Facebook, to Twitter via Periscope, as well as the station. So if you're a follower on CBS, you can follow us there and watch us on all the platforms on CBS Sports Radio, including their Facebook page and their Twitter handle. In addition, I invite you to also subscribe to a couple key podcasts that we like to talk about. Just Pod Baby with Evan Grote, which is one of our own here. And then my co-host today as well, your boy Q, hosts the Locked On Raiders podcast, which is a daily podcast. Make sure you go and sub to that as well. A great way to keep up with what's going on throughout. And joining me today, and we actually, Q and I were testing video earlier, so I actually have Q by video today, which we're going to get everybody on video, as well as our co-host Chaz Osborne. But Q, start with you, man. Good morning. How you doing today?
Doing really well, man. Appreciate you guys having me back for another week. It's always fun talking some Silver and Black and being on with you guys. So yeah, man, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it is incredible week, of course, in this country with all that's going on. Chaz, how you doing, man? You staying cool and on the golf course still?
Yeah, great golf weather. No, I actually, the casinos opened up. I had some football bets that I hadn't cashed yet, so I had to jam over to the casino that first day and see if they'd cash them, because I think they were expired, but I think since the lockdown and everything, they didn't give me any trouble cashing them.
So so you cashed out some, and then you also have some futures you're making there, or what?
No, I just had a few left over from last season, from late, like the last game of December that I hadn't cashed yet.
Man, I like my money too much, Q. I'd be there like the next day, man.
Man, I'm telling you. I
was stressing. I didn't know if they'd cash them. It was a pretty large amount. I was kind of worried about it for a minute there.
Oh yeah, well, it is good. That's the good thing for us in Las Vegas. Q's joining us, of course, from down in Texas, but in Las Vegas here, of course, the news that we are open for business, and it's been a busy weekend. I see a lot of people making snap judgments out there that, oh, you guys are going to make the virus bad again and all this stuff. Let's just settle down now. Let's just settle down. We had the highest unemployment in the nation, so it's good to see people back to work. But let's start off.
And they took a lot of safety precautions too. Walking in, they took your temperature. They've got sanitizing stations everywhere. They've got hand washing stations everywhere. There's only 3 chairs at each table, things like that. So everything's spread out. It looks like it's crowded in there, but it's not. It's just really spread out.
It is. Yeah,
so they're taking great safety precautions.
There's no doubt about it. But I'll tell you what may be crowded, and we'll see. It depends on what they allow as far as fan interaction. But, guys, we found out this week that indeed what we thought was going to happen. We reported several weeks ago, after talking to some folks in the NFL office and some folks with the Raiders as well, that told us that the training camp most likely could be moved to Las Vegas, to Henderson, to the team's new headquarters. And Q, they basically pulled that trigger. The NFL made it mandatory for NFL teams to stay at home, basically, to stay at their practice facilities. That surprise you at all?
No, not at all. Everything is going to err on the side of caution now. Just moving forward in 2020, and who knows, maybe moving forward forever. We just don't know how this is going to go. So it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a shock when they made that. And honestly, I believe they made the right call, just because you don't want to have to worry about traveling there, traveling back, traveling here. You have to do as little traveling as possible. You really just want to kind of get in and out. And so I think for everybody to stay home and use their own facilities, as long as they're able to do that, I think that's a great idea moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chad,
usually, yeah.
No, Chaz, I was going to ask you, the NBA, like you guys used to go to Hawaii and do all kinds of stuff too, but we're going to see all sports kind of stay close to home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the owners, the owners want to go have fun. It's kind of their time to shine. That's why. So every other year we went to Hawaii. I thought that was like a huge bonus. I couldn't believe it, but the coaches, they want to get their players out of their comfort zone. They want to get away from their daily distractions to focus solely on football and also to build that camaraderie, right? So instead of going home after practice or hanging out with their friends, these players are all staying at the same hotel. They're going out to eat together. We saw it on Hard Knocks last year. Building that chemistry is key. But, this is a unique situation that the Raiders are in, not only, moving to a new facility, but moving to a new city. So I feel like going back and forth from Napa, when these guys are still trying to get furniture in their homes would be too much. So I definitely think it's a smart move just to have everything in one place, at least for this first season.
Yeah, and guys, the other thing too, though, and nobody's really talked about this because I think a couple reasons. One, and with all due respect to the folks up in the Bay Area, I know you lost your team. I know how that all goes. And so the Raider fans that had just lost the team in Oakland, very excited. Hey, look, camp is staying in Napa. Mark Davis committed last year. He said, listen, for the long term, I think we're going to keep it in Napa. And that may still happen. It may. But in some ways, I'm going to take a different approach here and say, listen, I think that this is actually very good for the team the way this is panning out. I know it might not be good for the fans in Northern California, or maybe it is because you can come to Vegas now. But anyway, I think what's good about it is that, listen, you're moving the entire organization. And for those players, I know because I've been talking to players here, organizing interviews for the show, a lot of them are now currently moving to Las Vegas over the next month or so before July hits. But for them to now be able to move here and settle in a little bit, Q, before camp starts, and then be here as the facility opens up, as the stadium opens up, I think there's some big upside for that.
I do too, and especially since it's a brand new facility anyway. I mean, you're going to go ahead and get an early start, an early jump on testing out your new facility and testing out all those nice football fields that they have out there. Now, the one thing I will say about it is, well, Napa is very cool and it's very not hot, and Vegas is very opposite of that. Vegas is very hot, similar to what Texas is. I mean, so they're going to have to organize their practices either early in the morning or later in the evenings to try to avoid the heat, probably really early in the morning. But besides that, I mean, I think everything is going to be good to go. That's the only element that I think that they're going to have to try to overcome.
No, and they have the 1.5 fields indoors. If you guys have seen the pictures or seen our drone video of the practice facility and headquarters, they have the ability to go inside, but you guys all know that when you're doing training camp and you got all those guys before you trim rosters, you can't fit them all in that building. So yeah, I'm thinking, and I'm sure the players aren't going to love this, but I'm thinking that the sun here comes up just before 5 a.m. They might be out at 5 a.m. And I think that the people that you might see, Q, who complain most about the early times, probably not the players, but probably those in the media who are going to go out there at 5 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. That's the truth. And it's funny. I talked to John McClain from the Houston Chronicle, been covering the NFL. I talked to him every single week, and that was one of the things he said. He said that's the only thing that's going to be a different, kind of a hang-up is the fact that the weather. You're going to have to accommodate for the weather, and you have to accommodate for the heat, and make sure that the players are in the best position to succeed. And so, yeah, the media is going to complain about it a little bit, but as far as the players, they should be able to take care of it, no problem.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think, too, Chaz, you look at this as also the Raiders coming a little bit early is good for the market, for fans in the market. Maybe folks that aren't Raider fans per se yet, who are looking forward into seeing the NFL in this market for the first time, they now will get an early taste of it, and they can actually, depending on how they allow fan participation, they can actually drive over and check it out instead of watching training camp and all of the battles happening for this team, who's going to make this team happening in Napa.
Sure. Yeah, he talked about it. I think we had Mark Bedane on the show. He talked about that the fans will be allowed to the practices and the training camp and facilities there. So it would be nice for the city to get a little taste, a little teaser. The guys coming in early, starting to see some action. I don't know if hockey's coming back here, but this city's ready for it. You see it all around town. I'm seeing stickers, I'm seeing T-shirts, I'm seeing hats. This town's ready for the Raiders, and it would be nice to have a little early action here.
And Q, what do you? What's your gut tell you? The way we keep hearing. And I know you talk to a lot of the same people I do. We keep hearing that the NFL, when it comes back in September, more than likely we're going to have at least most of the fans in the stand, if not full stadiums. Mm-hmm. What's your gut tell you on training camp? Because we're basically a month and a half, maybe a little less than that, away from training camp here. You think fans are going to be allowed there and maybe just in limited numbers?
I don't think so. I mean, I honestly don't. I mean, when it just comes to gut feeling, I think that they're going to try to keep the fans, away. I think they're not going to really want them to be there and interacting just because they're coming from somewhere else and coming in. And, I mean, you don't really know. Now, again, they could do it in a limited fashion, like you said, but I just think unless maybe they'll specify just one day, like, hey, this is a fan day, a fan appreciation day for the fans that can come. But I honestly don't believe that there'll be any fans at training camp. I just think that it'll just be too much work, and that they just really want to try to, like I said before, err on the side of caution.
Well, and I would love to see them use maybe technology here. I know, look, practices, for those of you who've not been to camp, there's a little bit of excitement at the beginning of the day. The players are running out there. They do greets. Some of them will sign autographs and things like that. It's a great fan interaction. But besides that, it's a lot of drudgery. I mean, you got guys learning positions, learning offense, learning defense, fighting for jobs. So I'd love to see them maybe televise some of it or stream some of it, some of the areas there, and maybe do some Q&A, some virtual interactions for the fans that can't be there if that goes down. Because, listen, training camp for hardcore football heads, gym rats, if you will, that to them, Chaz, is a big deal. And so you don't want to take that all away just because they can't be there in person.
Right. No, you actually took the words right out of my mouth. I was thinking that, kind of sort of like Hard Knocks last year, they could film a lot more of it and give us a lot more content that way, because the fans, they want to be there. They want to see it. But I'm with Q. I believe they're probably going to err on the side of caution and not have fans, or if they do have fans, they won't have that same interaction. So they won't have that same feeling, it won't be a good vibe like it is usually, because the fans will have to be way on the other side of the field where they can't even be that close to the players and see the action. So if they filmed it more and they gave us a little bit more of that, I think that would probably appease everybody and it'd be a great thing just for the NFL.
Hey, Scott, real quick, I think that, and this is just, again, my gut feeling, I think sports are going to be completely covered differently than what we're used to as well. From our point of view, our media standpoint, I don't think that we'll have the interaction with the players like we used to. I don't think we'll have as much locker room access. I think it's going to be, now that everyone's found that Zoom works so well and all that, I think that there's going to be a lot more of, okay, hey, coach is jumping on this Zoom conference at 12 o'clock. Everybody who's part of the media jump on. I think that that's the direction that they're going to go moving forward, and I think it's probably going to be that way probably forever. I don't think that what we've been doing for the last 20,000 million years, I don't think it's going to be the same.
It's a great point. I think that, one of the things when you cover a team day to day is you get to develop those relationships with players, and so that's, I know for media, that's really important, because that's how you get to know guys and you get a little bit of a feel for the team. And so, but I think you're right, Q. I think you look at, for example, press conferences, the way the Raiders have done them in the past. Now, we've been covering the team for 3 years from a distance. Now they're going to be here, and now it all changes. So I'm okay with it, but in some ways I'm like, damn, it's finally happening, and now it's going to change. But press conference, great. You can do the distancing there. But, yeah, the days of walking through the locker room, maybe, especially this year. Now, maybe eventually it goes back to a little bit of that. But I agree with you. I think when you look at 2020 particularly, they're not going to want any kind of recurrence of this thing happening. So to have guys, reporters coming in locker rooms after the game and doing those big scrums, I think you're right, Q. I think those days are gone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just what my gut feeling's been telling me. Not to mention, when you get all these reporters that are going to be in the press box, I don't think that there are going to be as many people in the press boxes as it usually is, and so credentials are probably going to be limited. You're going to have to pick and choose who you're giving credentials to, and making sure that everyone's distanced in in the press conference setting. So, and at least for this year, but that's just kind of how I think that sports are going to be covered now moving forward. It's just going to be different than what we're used to.
Well, and we saw this week too a rough week because we saw The Athletic. We have some good friends there, including Vic Tafer and Tashawn Reed, who's now the new beat writer for the Raiders here in Las Vegas, just moved here. Welcome to him. But we saw them cut 8% of their staff, right, because of what's happened. There's been no sports. There's been no revenue. They're subscription-based, but you also have ad-based media. We all feel that, Q. We're in radio. We know what ads have been like over the last 2 months. And so I think you're going to see games. We've seen it already. You're going to see games called from studios. like they do with some of the Mexican soccer leagues here, where guys are sitting in Miami and they're doing a game that's in Mexico City. I think you're going to see more of that too, because travel's been restricted. A lot of big corporations are no longer allowing their folks to travel, so it's all going to change. All right, well, we're going to step aside for a break and pay some bills if we could. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Raiders' reaction to the events of America this week. So some of you will be triggered, but that's okay. We're going to talk about it. Did the Raiders do enough? Were you happy with how they responded? We'll talk about that next. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Go back in time.
Clear.
Frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
CBS Sports Radio. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
I see people mad at the Raiders because of their social media team. I mean, silly stuff like that. And look, I'm not trying to dime anyone out. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone. I'm just saying that a lot of the energy that I see on Twitter and I see on social media and I hear people talking about that is aimed at a certain direction, if people use that energy for something good, for actual action, 140 characters don't matter. I could put out 140 characters that says that, I'm going to change the world. But if I don't do any action, what does it mean? I mean, look, seriously. People are coming at Mark Davis because, he took too long. He didn't make the statement till Sunday night. Or I don't like the way that he said that. Or I don't like the fact that the social media team of the Raiders haven't done this on Twitter. What does it matter? I mean, does it matter that if you put a black square on your Twitter account? It doesn't matter if that's all you do. If you don't speak on it and you don't call some action to it, what does it matter?
There you go. That is our co-host today, your boy Q, who on his Locked On Raiders podcast did a nice segment. And Q, I wanted to just go right to the audio because when I listened to your podcast when it came out, you were expressing exactly what I thought, because we saw a lot of people come out both in favor of and against what they thought the Raiders did and how they responded to the civil unrest, to the issues around racial harmony in our country. And I was there right there with you. And what the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I felt, and again, like you said in your statement there from your show, it's not that I disrespect any of those people that I disagree with. We have a lot of folks that you and I know from Raider Nation who had that point of view, who said Mark Davis didn't do enough, that Derek Carr didn't do enough, that the organization was staining the legacy of Al Davis in the way of racial equality and so on, which I totally disagree with. Now, I don't dislike those people anymore. They're entitled to their opinion. But the reason it struck for me so close to home was in my own view, right? And I come at from my perspective. Right? You have a much different perspective growing up as a black American. I'm not, right? But for me, I've always said this, and I always tell my kids this too, which is when you have something that is important, that is a heavy issue, don't just snap judgment, make a statement, say what you think. Think about it, digest, put your thoughts together, and then express them in whichever way you think is appropriate.
Exactly right. I mean, how many times do we just jump into a conversation and like a knee-jerk reaction when we see something and say something out of context or just say something wrong that you wish, oh man, I kind of wish I didn't say it like that. When it's a subject like this, I don't blame anybody for taking their time. I took my time before I talked about it because I wanted to make sure what I said was exactly what I felt and exactly, it was all from the heart. It was genuine, and it doesn't need to be rushed. It's not one of those that it's not a competition of who can put something out there first. It's say what's on your mind and get your feelings out and make sure that they're correct. And so you don't go back later. Like me listening to that right now, I said, yeah, That's exactly how I felt. I mean, there's been times where you could listen to something that you said in the past and said, I kind of wish I hadn't said it like that. I 100% agree with what I said on Thursday. That was, that's exactly how I felt. That's what you have to do is take your time. I don't begrudge anyone who takes their time.
No, and the other thing too, though, is, and I've said this, I tweeted this out, and again, and I'm going to get into social media too, because I think, this is such a big issue in our country, and it's an important one that we need to take care of and we need to address. You don't do it in social media. Okay, I understand that's how we converse today. It's sort of like the water cooler, if you will, a very toxic one, by the way.
Yes.
And so to me, what I said was, look, you say something, you get hammered for saying it. You don't say anything, you get hammered for saying nothing. And that's to your point about waiting, thinking, and being marked with what you say. And I think you're seeing a lot of people jump into the fray. I was watching the news this morning because I was up at 4:30, and I'm seeing these organizations. I'm seeing the local TV station. I'm not going to say which because I'm not being critical, but I'm pointing out that all of a sudden they're talking about this programming that is specifically for African Americans in Las Vegas that I had never seen before, and suddenly they're going to play it. It's like, well, what are we doing here? Are we reacting? It's good to react. If there's a serious issue like this, let's take care of it. Yes, we need action. To your point, not just words, action. Okay, but that doesn't mean that suddenly an issue you ignored forever, you suddenly are on top of. That's not what it's about. It's not in the moment just showing that you're there to say something about it. It's actually doing something. I mean, Q, for these folks, it's great to donate the money. It's great to say that you're with folks and that you're for the lack of, or that you don't want police brutality, that you want African Americans to be treated as equals as they should be as human beings. But to say it and then to do things like go volunteer in the Black community, to be part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, to go volunteer with the elderly in those communities and help them, that's where you're going to make the change.
Exactly. You know, I said this before that I felt like there was a lot of people that are in it for the right reason and they're trying to do a lot of good, and donating money, like you said, is really good as long as you know where it's going and how it's going to help. But it has to mean something. It has to be going to some kind of cause and helping out with the cause. Some organizations, I'm not particularly putting out any certain news people, but there's certain people out there that are doing it because, well, everybody else is doing it. And that's not the right reason to do it. You know, we don't want to be left out. We want to make sure that everyone still thinks that we're all in the same lane with everybody, and everyone's not doing it for that reason. So if you're out there doing it for the right reason, great. But don't just go out there and start overcompensating because you want to just make it look like you're cool, or, you know what I mean? Or you're part of the group. That could be a problem as well.
No, and again, there's nothing wrong with having a change of heart and maybe realizing you didn't see an issue before. That's good. That's called progressing. That means you woke up to something and you said, okay, now I get it. I didn't quite understand it before, but now this event, this discussion has helped me understand. But I've seen people that I'm connected with LinkedIn who suddenly are, hey, if you're a Black-owned business, I'll offer you my services for free. It's like, well, what? That's mentoring. We should be doing that anyway. Now, again, I don't begrudge them. I think they're doing the right thing. They're trying to do the right thing. But one of the things that did strike me, and you can call me a shill or whatever you want, I just thought the criticism of Mark Davis was unfair because I think, again, when you react and you're in an emotional state, you don't necessarily think things all through. It doesn't mean it has to change your mind. If you really think that the Raiders didn't do a good enough job, fine. I can disagree with you and we can agree to disagree. But Mark Davis appeared on a local radio show here, not our station, over at ESPN 1100 in town. And I wanted to play some of his comments because I think some of the people who commented on how the Raiders reacted didn't hear this interview. Q, I know you talked about it on your podcast. But here's Mark Davis when he talked about what they were going to do now. So actions. This is what Mark Davis said that the Raiders were going to be doing.
We have to come up with solutions. And I think that starts on the local level. I don't think you can do it any other way. And I reached out to Attorney General Aaron Ford and Sheriff Joe Lombardo, and they were very open to getting together with some of our players and coaches and just starting a discussion. I believe it's important that the Raiders coming to a new market, to a new area, coming to the Valley here, that we start off on the right foot. And I think we can build something really great between the community, the team, and have it flow throughout the community here.
There you go, Q. I mean, and that's what it's about, right? I mean, it's action. It's not putting out a tweet with some statement that you think is great. It's about doing something.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, man. And I talk about Twitter all the time and how it's very toxic, like you said, and it really is. But I saw so many people on Blackout Tuesday put black squares. And look, I was one of them. I put that out as well. But at the same time, in my heart, I knew what I was doing it for, and there's a lot of people that just put it out there because, oh, well, this company just did it, or this radio station just did it, or this guy just did it, so I better do it too. There's people that I saw on there and I looked and thought, are you serious? Like you went down that path because I know you know what I mean? Like there's way too many people that I know personally that I saw put that out there. And I know that they were just trying to stay in that lane, and try to be with the in crowd or whatever, do what everyone else is doing. And that's not effective. But what Mark Davis is talking about, going to the Attorney General, getting the players involved, talking, having communication, better understanding, because that's what it's all about. That's where it starts is I got to understand your side and you've got to understand my side so we could all come together and understand each other. That's how it really gets going. So Mark Davis and the Raiders are doing the right thing. But for people to get on them, I thought that was just silly and out of line for them to get on them they haven't done enough. And Al Davis would have been ashamed. Al Davis didn't care about social media. Al Davis did his own thing. You
He
think Al Davis you think he would have cared about any kind of social media? No, not at all. He wouldn't have worried about what his social media team was doing. He would have worried about the action that his team was taking. And he did that from the minute that he took over the Raiders and it brought them to their glory and all the hires that he made. He didn't do that because it was a movement. He did it because that was Al Davis.
That's right. No, absolutely. Well said. And I think, too, that you look at the situation and it's like, look, you can't do everything. And I had somebody direct message me on Twitter and say, hey, man, I hear you're saying the Raiders are doing that. They reached out to the community, but that's not reaching out to politicians is not reaching out to the black community. And I said, well, do you realize that our attorney general is African-American and that he's a significant figure in the African-American community? So again, people, yeah, exactly. So that's my point is, hey, you know what? It's okay to see something on Twitter. Let's say you get angry or you agree with it. Go spend some time, look into it before you respond. It's okay. You don't have to respond in those quick 180 characters on Twitter very quickly. Just take your time, be marked with what you say, and if people attack you for what you believe in, then just walk away. Listen, Twitter is not the real world, folks. Most of those people do not matter, all right? I appreciate the people who follow us, who converse with me, but I've also had wackadoodles who threaten my family and all kinds of things. So just be careful. Let's put action forward instead of just words. Words are important as a first step, but also remember, people act and change things in their own way too. What somebody might do, somebody might go out and speak publicly and be very vocal, and that's awesome. We need that. But then there's also some people who might be doing things that you never see. So be respectful of that as well. But a great discussion nonetheless. All right, we're going to take another break because it's the bottom of the hour, folks. So appreciate you being here with Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. When we come back, we're going to talk about Raiders defense. Q wants to ask, is there a way for them to find a way to stop other teams so that they can cut down on the points per game? If they could cut back on 6 points per game, they could have made the playoffs last year. Can they do it this year? We'll talk about how and why it's important. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Your car, home, motorcycle, commercial auto, and more. All your protection in one place. Bundle and save at Progressive.com.
CBS Sports Radio. You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back, Raider Nation, to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Hope you're having a good Sunday. I have my 16-hour pork butt in the smoker, so I'm gonna I'm doing it right today, man. My daughter's coming in, guys, to visit from Phoenix, so I'm making some good dinner. I can't wait. I've been smelling it since last night when I put it in. It's like, man, I went out this morning to mop it a little bit with some apple cider vinegar. I'm ready. I'm ready. All right, but we're back to talking football. And, you know, we Q and I and Chaz were talking about ideas for the show this week. And one of the things Q brought up was the Raiders defense. We talked last weekend, Q, about the Raiders defense and the defensive line in particular, and what they have to do this year to get better, right? So you look at the Raiders, and you brought up the fact that, listen, last year, if they gave up less points, 6 points, right, per game?
Yeah, 6 points, yep.
They make the playoffs, right?
Yep, exactly. They gave up 26 points. They averaged giving up 26 points per game. If they could have found a way to shave that down to 20, 21, they're winning 3 games. There's 3 extra games that they win there if they could shave off 6 points. And I know that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but at the same time, it's 1 touchdown. It's less than 1 touchdown. If you could find a way to keep a team out of the end zone and make them kick a field goal a couple times, you're instead of winning 7 games, you're winning 10.
Yeah. No, that's true. And Chaz, we talked about that last year on the show. Remember, there were a couple plays in a couple games. Now, we're not talking about the Jets game. We're talking about just in general, folks, games that where you make one play that prevents a score and you win that game.
Right. Well, okay, so the offense scored about 20 points a game, right? And the defense gave up about 26 points a game. And I feel like the defense was probably a little worse than that, but because of John Gruden's like methodical ball style, ball control, the Raiders offense was able to limit opposing teams' possessions, correct? Mm-hmm. So here's the breakdown. I did a little analytical. Last season, the Raiders had 160 offensive possessions. So that was 13 fewer than the league average. And the defense faced 158 possessions, which is 15 fewer than the league average. So the Raiders were 6th in yards per possession, but 19th in scoring. So we all know what the Raiders' deficiency was last year, right?
Yep.
And that was by far the biggest difference by any team last season. The Chargers were close. They were 4th in yards per possession and 14th in scoring. But every other team was within 2 or 3 spots of that graph. So let's say the Raiders are just 4 spots worse instead of 13. So that would give them, let me get this, that's a 382. So that would give them 23 points. That basically gives them 24 points a game, up from 20. So really the defense only needs to be 3 points better than last year. Mm-hmm. If the offense can be 4 points better, that gives them a better differential of scoring points. And that's all you got to do is score more points than the other team, and you're looking good. So that was a huge discrepancy. We all knew that was the Raiders' biggest problem last year, was getting it in the end zone or just finishing off drives in general.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was the biggest key. I mean, they were very good between the 20s, and then when it came down to the red zone, they just couldn't cash it in. They couldn't get those touchdowns. They settled for field goals too many times. And so, yeah, you bring up a great point. If they score a little bit more, then really you only have to, shave off 3 points. If you could shave off 3 points a game, basically one time down the field, instead of allowing Kansas City to score a touchdown, make them kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Right. Make them kick a field goal. And, I mean, really, that's what it's all about. I mean, it used to be back in the day we'd look at yards per game and, oh, man, this team gave up so many yards, but it doesn't really matter about the yards anymore because the league is so wide open. Teams are throwing the ball around the yard and running it around so much that they're going to stack up their yards. It's when you get down to the red zone, can you buckle down and say, Patrick Mahomes, this one possession, you're not getting in the end zone. You're going to have to send your field goal kicker out onto the field. If you could do that one more time a game, you have an opportunity to win that game.
Well, and guys, I mean, you look at, like you said, Raiders 26.2 points a game. You had 2 teams who made the playoffs playoffs, the Seahawks and the Texans, who were over 24 points, the Seahawks almost 25, right? But when you look at offenses, right, that's where you see that out of the top 10 offenses, only one of those teams didn't make the playoffs, right? The Buccaneers. There was one more maybe, but top 10 teams with the lowest points per game, 7 of those made the playoffs. The Bears, Steelers, and Broncos did not make the playoffs, even though they had a top 10 defense. So that's where I'm saying that 6 points, Q, to me, it's like, okay, if you can find a way to score one more field goal and to hold a touchdown to a field goal, there it is, right? There's the difference in 2020 from maybe being an 8-8 team or a 9-7 team to maybe being a 10-6 team.
Exactly. And look, that's the key. I mean, it really is the key. And this is what the Raiders are going to have to find a way to do. John Gruden, Paul Gunther, Mike Mayock, whoever you want to put it on, they're going to have to find a way to make that happen, because this year 3 under John Gruden, the expectations should be for them to be a playoff team. And I know that this is a very tough division. The AFC West is not an easy division. Kansas City is the cream of the crop, obviously, but every team in the AFC West got better this offseason. So it's going to be very difficult to do. But again, with that recipe that you're talking about, that's how you get it done. So that's what John Gruden, this whole time that they've been in quarantine, he should be quarantined into the office and just in the lab trying to figure out exactly how to put that recipe to work, just like you mentioned.
Right. And I think we all agree that the additions on the defense this year, that'll definitely make them a lot stronger, and definitely bring that number down from 26. I think, they possibly bring that down to 20 just alone by themselves without the offense having to improve. But, the one thing I'm always saying on the show is balance, right? The best offense is good defense, and vice versa. So they got to work together.
Well, and that to me, guys, is you put in the fact that they have more depth. I thought last year on defense, of course we know they played well, and then they faded at the end of the year. When you have injuries, you have attrition in the NFL. You have to have depth at every position. It's not just one player and that's it. So you add the depth there, then the improvement in the middle of the defense and on the back end of the defense. To me, that's already 3 points. I really believe that. I mean, now they got to do it on the field. I understand that, and I'm being very optimistic amid this friggin' COVID crap and the fact that we haven't seen guys on the field yet. But Q, the point is, though, I think that they've addressed it on defense. Now on offense, you got a lot of new moving parts that got to work together. But to me, that's why I don't think high expectation. I thought last year, I told Raider fans, I was in the 8-8 camp last year, and Raider fans were telling me 10, 11 wins, and I said, no, the schedule, and sure enough, it ended up being a little bit about that. So to me, though, this year, I think they should have high expectations, and there should be high expectations of the coaching staff, as you mentioned, and of this team.
No doubt about it. I mean, really, and that was me. I mean, my range last year was I had no idea. I mean, because there was just so many question marks. I thought that they could be anywhere from 4-12 to 8-8 last year. And obviously that's a big window, but I just didn't know. This year I feel like I have a much better idea of what this team is and who this team should be. I really do. And I mean, for example, you're talking about the depth. They went into 2019 with 4 linebackers, and one was Vontaze Burfict, who never plays a 16-game season. You know what I mean? And so that was bound to fail. And so as soon as he got suspended for the 12 games, you already knew that, okay, that unit's going to be hurt. So at least they shored up a lot of different positions. And another thing that they have to do is on that defense. When they made the playoffs in 2016, it wasn't because the defense was great. It was because they were able to create turnovers. And they have not created turnovers in the last few years at all. If they can find a way to get their hand on the ball, if an Amik Robertson could come down with the ball, if anyone, just somebody, a playmaker, could go out there, you already knew that to create a turnover. That's another way that you're going to eliminate some touchdowns and force other teams to get kick field goals later in the game.
No, there's no doubt about that. And I think you should need, or I should say, Raider fans should expect everything. I'm seeing a lot of folks in our YouTube chat saying, hey, no more excuses. It's time to do it. And I agree with them. At the same time, temper your expectations. Don't expect this team to win the Super Bowl. I think the realistic goal is get that wild card, right? You can, I know everybody hates the Chiefs. I get it. The Chiefs are a better team. They just are right now. That doesn't mean that injuries and things can't change that. But the Raiders, even though they've gotten better in almost every area, there's still some depth issues there. They're in the rebuilding process. They're not quite 100%, I think, there. But I do think, to your point, the AFC is going to be tough, though, not only in the West, but But overall, when you're talking about a wild card position, but I definitely think they are in the right direction. And Q, I agree. I think they're there. I think that they can get that 6 points. And so this year have less excuses and better opportunity to become the playoff team that everybody wants them to be, right? So it'll be interesting. But where do they fall overall throughout the NFL? When we come back from this break, we're going to talk about that because Peter King put out his power rankings. And you might say, why are we just talking about Peter King's power ranking? Well, Peter King is who he is, but also it gives us something to talk about. It is, in fact, the beginning of June, and we don't know when camp's back yet. But nonetheless, we're going to talk a little bit about where he ranked the Raiders and what he said about them, and if you agree with that too. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio. I guess we're off the air, huh?
He said he fat fingered it. That's funny.
Yep.
It happens, man. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
I've yet to meet a perfect human being. I don't know that I don't think I ever will.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a while. So.
That's all right. I thought I was like, oh my God, did I not pay attention to the time?
No, I was like, did I hit that? And it started going. I was like, yep, I guess I hit it.
Here I was all proud because I was coming to within the exact 1 second of the break.
Right. That was perfect. Come right down to the line. Perfect.
He's got Tampa Bay 5th.
I know. That was crazy.
I don't know. I mean, I get the Tom Brady thing, but really?
Yeah, I guess he's just going off of Brady and Arians is going to be just a great relationship. That's all I can think of.
Yeah.
His 5th is very high for me.
They were good last year if they didn't have 30 interceptions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did.
Huge.
But they did.
What you're saying is, I think what he's saying is they're probably only going to have 10 this year, so that's a huge difference.
Yeah, matter of fact, he said the Bucs threw 30 interceptions in 2019. In the last 5 years, Brady's only thrown 29.
Right, there you go.
Wow.
That's a game changer.
Incredible.
I mean, that's the thing we're talking about. That was the thing when I was looking up
I've always
the
loved.
Chargers,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Chess.
No, go ahead.
No, I said I've always loved Winston. I just keep waiting for him to put together.
Right.
Hell, if he cut that interception total in half, still be high.
They're in the playoffs. But a couple more games, all they needed.
I still can't. Where do you think Cam's going to go? I'm shocked nobody signed him yet.
I'll tell you right now, this has been my gut feeling. I don't even think he wants to play football.
No.
I don't think ever since the Super Bowl he hasn't even seemed like he's got the love for the game anymore.
Yeah, could be.
That's true.
And
I think
I think he should just go ahead and retire and be a pitch man for something. I mean, with that $1 million smile he's got, he can do anything he wants to do.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got. I mean, he's all into the style stuff. I mean, he could. Yeah. And hey, you know what? Hey, look, if you don't have the love anymore, you got the money. I mean, he's been smart with his money
Right.
from everything I've understood. So like, hey, go enjoy your life, man. Nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
I feel like he's got a big ego, though. He's got to get back out there and prove it. I don't know.
Yeah, but he could prove it
Yeah.
business-wise, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I think you're right though. I think he's going to want to prove it just to say, see, they cut me for no reason. Look how healthy I am.
Right.
I think he's going to play out of spite instead of because he really wants to play the game. Yeah, exactly.
One thing.
CBS Sports Radio.
Hey, this is Eric Allen. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And we with the video sometimes because I'm doing it all. I'm directing video and I'm no Steven Spielberg. But sometimes I leave the volume up a little bit, and so people are laughing at our conversation. Luckily, we're good dudes. We don't say bad words. We don't say bad things about people. We're just talking football. So, anyway. So welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And with this last segment of the show, we wanted to talk about the NFL Power Rankings. Where do you rank the Raiders? Okay, so Peter King, of course, Monday morning quarterback, former SI. I think everybody's now former SI because SI is a shell of what it used to be. Is now, he put out his ranking, his first rankings of the year, his power rankings. If you didn't see them, I'll quickly summarize 1 through 7 so we can get to 8. 1 was Kansas City. Okay, boo, I know, I get it. Raider fans hate that. Baltimore, number 2, makes sense. New Orleans, number 3. Of course, this was pre the Drew Brees magic. We'll see how that goes. San Francisco, 4. Tampa Bay, 5. We'll get back to that one because that's the shocker. 6, Seattle. At 7, Tennessee. And number 8, your Las Vegas Raiders. And guys, I like where he puts it here. He says, listen, it's going to be a fun floor show. This is quoting him. And the new Allegiant Stadium in the first year ever NFL franchise in Nevada. What could be fun, the Speedy Henry Ruggs with Terrell Williams, Hunter Renfrow, Lynn Bowden, Brian Edwards, Darren Waller, Jason Witten, so on and so forth. And then he talks about the defense, guys. So I like where he put the Raiders. I think this is actually the first time I've seen over the course of this rebuild, because this team is finally putting it together, this national recognition cue from Peter King that the Raiders are there. They're a top 10 team, at least on paper right now.
Yeah, exactly. I was pretty shocked to see that when I saw him put that ranking out. I was surprised when I looked at some of the teams that he had ranked behind the Raiders. I thought, wow, that's really giving them a lot of love, because normally, like you said, to your credit, they don't get a lot of national love. And so to see somebody who is as known and as well known and as respected as Peter King say, you know what, this team has the opportunity. And I think that's the key thing right there. It's the opportunity to be a top 10 team. And so putting them at number 8, I think that's a good, nice little slot for them to be at right now.
Chaz, is this a top 10 team?
Hey, they're always a number 1 team for me. You know that.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Come on.
Wow.
Chaz, the sky is falling. Oh, well, yeah, it's closer to us now, though. Chaz, that's why we love Chaz. He's an optimist.
Always a positive.
Yep.
Always. So
yep.
I was kind of baffled that the earlier rankings had the Raiders so low. I'm thinking, what are people looking at? The Raiders are obviously on an uptick after the improvements we saw from 2018 to last season, and I have no reason to think that they won't improve again off of last year's result, right? So the Raiders have assembled a talented group of young players that work hard. They love the game. These players want to be here. They're getting inked up. They want to be Raiders. These guys they're playing for this team. They're playing for each other, and it's a winning combination.
Yeah, and I think Q, the opportunity for them. Again, with all the love in the world to Oakland and the original Raider fans, the fact that they have this fresh start, it's a new building, it's a new stadium for the first time, their own stadium, everything is legit awesome from facilities, all that stuff. It's just like this page has been turned, and all this ugliness that we've seen over the last 20 years, perhaps they finally have a footing on which they can then now jettison themselves up to that next level.
It's a new chapter. I mean, it is. It's a new chapter in the history of the Raiders. I mean, simple as that. And they've had plenty of chapters. They really have. And they're one of the most storied franchises in the NFL. And so that's the beauty of it. Now they get to take this book and they open this new chapter in Vegas with all these new facilities and new stadium and new toys and new, players and, the coach, John Gruden, who's a personality in himself, Mike Mayock. I mean, they have so much in front of them. Now, again, the biggest thing is they got to go out there and execute and make it happen on the field. But it's all there. The ingredients are there. Now you got to go cook the dinner correctly.
Oh, I love the dinner reference. Man. Yeah. You're making me hungry. I haven't had breakfast. I've loaded up on coffee early this morning, but that's about it. But before we move on, and so I think we're all in agreement the Raiders can be there if they put it all together. But number 5, Tampa Bay, guys, is Tom Brady. I mean, listen, I know, again, Raider fans hate Tom Brady. I get why. But Tom Brady is one of the GOATs at quarterback in the league. I get the Bruce Arians piece. I get that they got some good talent there. I just don't see them jumping from a borderline playoff team to a top 5 team.
I just don't. My biggest thing is that, yeah, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. We all know that. But one, he's older, and Father Time is undefeated. That's just one of those things that we know. I mean, it's just, that's it. Father Time is undefeated, and I don't understand how everyone just assumes he's going to go to this new system in the day and time that we have right now, where the year is really strange, and all of a sudden pick it up, no problem. Like it's just, like he's been doing it all his life, where he hasn't. He's been in the Patriot system. Bruce Arians' system is going to be different. They're going to expect him to do other things. So I'm a little shocked that he hasn't been number 5, but he's given the benefit of the doubt to Brady, and he's given the benefit of the doubt to Bruce Arians.
I think it's also the fact that we talked about off the air, the 30 interceptions last year from the Buccaneers. They're 7-9. If you cut that in half, that's a couple more wins, and they're knocking on a spot for a wild card for sure. So Brady's definitely going to bring that number down. He's going to have a more ball controlled, offense. They're going to be able to take care of business. So I think from that standpoint, it's already a solid team, and you're just taking away 30 interceptions and maybe putting in 10, and that should equate to 2 or 3 more victories right there.
Yeah,
but he's 43. He's 43. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
That's all I'm saying.
It's unbelievable.
And Q, you talk about Father Time being undefeated, and I look at my hairline as I'm looking at the video now. You're absolutely right, man. Between that and the gray hair and the getting up in the morning and the bones cracking and all kinds of stuff, man, it's crazy. But as always, guys, thanks for joining us. We're up on the end of the show. We're, again, just a programming note. We will not be here next week on the radio, but we're going to be live. We're going to be live on YouTube. The show is being preempted because there's a NASCAR race on CBS Sports Radio 1140. So if you're a NASCAR fan, you can listen to that. If not, you can find us on YouTube. We'll be live. We'll carry on with the show live on YouTube only next week. And then we'll be back on the radio on the 21st with what's going on in Raider Nation and some special guests that we'll tell you about next week. But, guys, as always, Q, thanks, man, for being here. And that's, now the Raiders have this facility, they have this stadium, and now they have Q on the air in Las Vegas. I mean, man.
Yeah.
I mean, what else could go wrong?
Getting better and better.
I know. I mean, clearly. I mean, we'll see. It'll be fun. But no, I appreciate you being here, man, as always. And it was good to have you on video. We'll get Chaz on video soon. I got to get over to his house and give him a camera so we can get him rolled up.
People don't want to see that.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's a lot of fun.
No, it is a lot of fun. We appreciate you being here. And Chaz, man, have a good week, brother.
You too. You guys be safe.
And most of all, thanks to all of the viewers and listeners out there. Without you, we are not here. I mean, that's plain and simple. I appreciate it. We don't always agree on everything, and I'm sure there's some things we said today you don't agree with, and that's cool. We got no problem with that. That's what content's all about. It's about finding what you like, what you don't like, and we appreciate you being here. We hope we give you something different, right? We hope we give you viewpoints that come from all different areas so that you can do it. All right. For your boy Q, for Chaz Osborne, and for our engineer, DJ Max, our buddy Trent, we appreciate you guys being here. Till next week, make sure you check out silverandblacktoday.com. Also, download this podcast, subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you can find it there. We appreciate that very much. Until next time, everybody, may the autumn wind always be at your back. Thanks for being with us. Take care.
How come he didn't put it on?
Well, we're still on the video because the video folks, just so you guys know, the video folks want me to leave up the sound during the break so they can hear what we're talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're doing a little post-show extra here on video. So
there you go.
We get such great chat, especially in YouTube. I mean, I love our people on Facebook and all that, but it's good to have those folks there. So we appreciate you being here. But Q, have a good week, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you
Absolutely.
too. Chaz, thanks, man. Thanks, Trent. Yep. And thanks to all the viewers and listeners out there. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, does this mean I'm off next week?
It does.